Welcome to We're the North Bank podcast. I'm trying desperately to sound very upbeat. We're about to discuss all things Arsenal in relation to, the title decider that took place yesterday at the Etihad. I'm joined this evening by Stefan and Chris. Hi, guys.
Good evening.
Hello.
Right. Okay. As we start each week, what's your gut response to what happened yesterday? Stefan, we'll run with you first. Straight after kickoff and maybe 24 hours later.
At the time, oh God, I was angry. Really angry. And I was angry at everything. You know, it wasn't just one thing. It was our performance. It was perhaps some of the tactics in the game, but it was also at Erling Haaland's hair and the crap tifo that they did at the start of the game, and it was the punk version of Blue Moon that they play, as well as all the 116 charges that are lobbied against them because they're financially doping the whole system, making every other team's attempt futile in trying to even compete. Yes, I was pretty angry.
Well, thank you, everyone. Great evening's podcast there. I think we'll leave it on that positive, upbeat note.
24 hours later, just a bit dejected, but you can't help but look at the season as a whole. You know, the rational brain kicks in the morning. That's been my mantra for about 2 years now. The whole, the rational side of how you see football, and then that emotional, animalistic side that sort of comes out at the time. Yeah, we've had a great season. And, we've lost twice in the league and once in the cup to a team that are they are on another level, as well as financially, but physically. The thing I kept saying throughout the game was it wasn't so much what they were doing that seemed so complicated. It's just that what they did was with such speed and precision, you just almost can't handle it. And, just trying to keep up with them is just
it did
nigh on impossible. And
the old Gary Neville accusation of men against boys did come to mind at one point.
Yeah, a little bit.
It did. However, we've lost the same amount of games as they have, and we're still above them. Like, we have competed with them. It's just the head-to-head.
Doesn't feel like we're above them.
No, it doesn't, and it doesn't feel like we've competed with them. And you have to look at the table and think, how on earth are we where we are? But yeah, here we are. Chris, what about you?
For me, yesterday was weird because I'd kind of gone through all the emotional turmoil after the West Ham game. That, for me, was the real kick in the nuts. I mean, I really felt it there that we'd kind of not blown it, but we'd lost our buffer. And then obviously the Southampton one, which was such a farce, it kind of just cemented that. It just felt like that's the buffer gone. We have to go and win this. And I didn't have much hope in us doing that. I'd kind of wanted us to go to the City game not needing to win, because I felt we could afford to lose it. And so I went with that kind of sanguine thinking, well, look, we've had a good season. I was trying to always look on that kind of broader perspective to just stop myself going into a sort of spiral of depression. So that was how I felt watching the game. And today I kind of feel the same. And I've just been analysing where we could have done better, tactically, and the way we set up.
Well, I guess we'll come to all that team selection and non-reaction to what was happening on the pitch, perhaps. But I think I completely agree with both those. Like, we have had a great season. I mean, you would have snapped someone's hand off if they'd offered you top of the league with 5 games to go, already qualified for the Champions League. Like, what? Us? Well, top 4, scraping into top 4. That was what we wanted. That was
it's a carbon copy of last year, isn't it? In the sense that we had it there in our hands at top 4, and then we went on that stuttering run,
Be great for a similar
and
response.
and there's similar thing where we didn't need to go to, we shouldn't have needed to go to Spurs and Newcastle last year in order to secure it, and that's where it faltered. So there's this sort of parallel there which kind of hurts. And I take your point, but I feel like it's like giving a kid an ice cream and then snatching it away from them. It feels like this year, well, I didn't promise you an ice cream, but have one anyway. Oh no, you can't have it now. So that's how it feels to me. Is that yes, the kind of goalpost moved in a sense, in that expectations.
Oh, I'm absolutely devastated. I won't be enjoying a league title winning parade on my birthday this year. So, but I agree. It wasn't last night where, if it pans out that we don't actually win the league, which it looks to all intents and purposes right now that's going to be the case, then it was West Ham away. I wouldn't even point at the Liverpool away game because that can happen. We didn't lose at Anfield. We got 4 points out of Liverpool this season. That's fantastic. I take that every season. But West Ham away, their kind of poor form off the back of a European game three days earlier, 2-0 up, coasting. Well, you cannot not win that game from that position. And then I think that fed into the Southampton. Well, the Southampton game was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I've got a theory on those games. I feel like our season is ending in is it the 7 stages of depression? So the Liverpool, of grief, not depression. Yeah. The Liverpool game was very much shock. Yeah. The West Ham game was a kind of, I don't know, denial something along those lines. And then Southampton was just, like you said, I mean, it was just absolutely crazy. And then I think my anger kicked in certainly yesterday, tinged with a hint of bitterness as well. And it just feels like it's, it does seem to be tumbling ever so slightly in that sense.
Okay. The team news when it came out, any surprises? What was it again?
Unfortunately not.
No, well, Jack. Well, okay. So what team would you have? I mean, there's two schools of thought. One, stick with what's got you to where you are. Have faith in that. Back yourselves. And that's what he did. And, we'd all win the league with hindsight. But Xhaka coming in for Vieira was an obvious improvement. Whether Xhaka was fully fit or not, I'm not so sure. Or do you actually think, okay, our weak link has been Holding, their strongest player. They've got a machine up front in Haaland. They've got De Bruyne, who has he surpassed his best season for assists already? Yeah, I think.
Yeah, just against us.
Just against us. Do you then tweak accordingly and put 3 at the back, put Jorginho in the middle as an extra buffer? So, Chris, you obviously think we should have.
You started that by saying we should carry on doing what had got us this far, and that was only with Saliba in the team, because unfortunately I don't want to throw Holding under the bus too much, but we've shipped 11 goals in the last 4 games. And so something clearly hasn't been working. And I felt like this was an opportunity to look at it and think, okay, it's City away. He needed more cover. Partey is clearly not 100% either. I personally would have liked to have seen, it's all right with hindsight, of course, but I would have liked to have seen him maybe go to the sort of double pivot in midfield, maybe play Jorginho alongside Partey with a sort of 4-2-3-1 rather than the kind of the 4-3-3 that we've been playing, just because I felt we needed that extra, that chasm in the middle. Whenever they transitioned, there was that chasm that they were driving into, and it was
that certainly should have happened at some point during the game, if not beforehand.
And I wonder whether as well with Arteta, he's gone sort of galaxy brain before when he's played Pep. he's kind of trying to impress him or whatever he's trying to do. See what I can do. But it felt like he was almost double bluffing and saying, no, we're going to stick with our principles and see what they think about that. And really, it just felt to me like there wasn't enough. We didn't have the momentum to carry on as we had been playing. I felt it needed a change of some kind. And, who knows, we could have been done 6-0, but it felt that, to me, it felt like that's what it needed.
It's funny. I'm reminded, Stefan, of something you said last week. You said Arteta cannot get this right.
Yeah.
You said regardless of what he does.
Impossible tactically. And yet, in the run-up to the game, when the team news came out, everyone was like, well, that's sort of our best team, minus Saliba, obviously, through injury. But that's sort of, the changes we make. The bit that got me was that they played in exactly the same way. I was expecting something different in how they approach the game, even if it's the same personnel that have done so well this season. Because, yes, we have that team on the whole has done very well this season, but in the last 2 or 3 games hasn't. Mm-hmm. So actually, you're not carrying the momentum
exactly
to carry that on. So, and also, I mean, you sort of hit on it a little bit, Chris. Man City's a free hit. Like if you completely rip up the tactic sheet and you go 3 at the back and you bring in Kivior and you bring in Tierney, most people are going to go, well, you got to try something because it's Man City. You've got to do something. So I'm really surprised that he didn't do anything. Yeah. And then as the game unfolded, it was just so clear in the first half. We were doing that thing where Martinelli and Saka go out really, really wide, meaning that when they're trying to play out from the back, everyone's bloody miles away from each other. So any pass that you make, unless it's the person next to you that's absolutely clear, it's too high risk. And City were just too quick and too quick to read those passes and cut them out, that it meant that we got absolutely nothing going. And De Bruyne has said as much. There's a clip that's done the rounds of him talking on CBS, I think it is, in the States, where he said, look, we knew we were playing Arsenal. We knew where the dangers were. So we played 2 in midfield, Gundogan and Rodri. It's like they're Man City and they're humble enough to go, this team are dangerous. Let's counter and then we'll see what we can spring from there. Why did we not do that? Do you remember the last time we won there? 2015? Seem to... Was it 2015? Yeah, 2-0. Cazorla feeding Giroud and we won. I remember, and I haven't done the research on this because I'm so certain that some leaks came out of the club that basically revealed that the players went to Wenger and said, "Can we go there and try something different?" And that something different was keep it tight. Low block, as I don't think was the term then, but low block, and we'll hit them on the counter. We've got Cazorla, who can pass to a postage stamp. We've got Giroud, who can hold the ball up, bringing those quick wide players. Sanchez it would have been at the time, and it'll be a smash and grab.
Yes,
and it worked.
Did Arteta play in that game?
See, I wonder. That's the other thing I did wonder, and I really should have checked, but didn't. He was definitely around the club at that time, but whether he actually played in that game, I don't know. I seem to remember that was the time when Coquelin was having that real purple patch and turned into the world's best defensive midfielder for about 3 months. And so it was, but it was the humility of just going, do you know what? They're really good. So let's try and negate what they do really well, which is exploiting space and time like no one else. I mean, that first City, was it the first City goal? Might have been the second City goal, or even the third. Who knows?
It was the first. The second came from the free kick.
One touch, bang, space.
Well, that was it. That's a perfect example of what I was looking at, thinking, no. And because holding so slow, we're having to drop off that extra 10 yards because we can't compress as we're used to.
Well, Haaland put himself on holding and pushed himself out a little bit wider, and there was the whole gap in the middle then. We didn't really have any defensive cover. Partey was running in treacle most of the game. It was strange for him.
Yeah.
And just on your point there, Stefan, Martinelli had 11 touches in the entire game.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I was saying last week as well, can Arteta stop bringing him off because it's doing my head in because he's so dangerous? But I don't think it was his fault that he had 11 touches.
No, didn't get them.
It was
It's
isolated.
through no fault of his own. It's through the fact that we played as though we were a bunch of strangers a million miles away from each other, and they were just cutting everything out. So if that's not working, sit in, just come back, pick up the ball closer, just make something. The problem then was obviously Gabriel Jesus started doing that, so that anytime we did then get the advantage, he was a focal point that was kind of off. And not where he perhaps. I mean, like you say, we're talking in circles here. This is what City do to people. They just tear them apart, and it's so exhausting.
Yeah, I watched their first leg game against Bayern Munich, and I sat there thinking, I really hope Arsenal players aren't watching this. On the basis of last night, I think they may well have been.
And yet, I watched those. I watched both legs. They gave Bayern Munich some chances.
Yeah.
If Bayern Munich could finish better, that would have been
Leicester, I told you about Leicester City. Leicester City at the weekend, they were 3-0 down, and then they scored to make it 3-1, and had about 2 or 3 other really, clear-cut chances.
They hit the post.
Yeah, they hit the post, but we just didn't. It didn't click for us. I think there were too many players. Like Xhaka was doubtful for the game after having missed Friday's game because he was ill. So he cannot have been operating off a full tank, and that showed. And he came off as well, and he doesn't. You need him on. Partey, I don't
He's
know.
not 100%, is he?
No,
Can't
there's something there,
And Ødegaard went hiding a bit, didn't he?
Oh, well, I mean, he gave the ball away for the third goal as well.
It's that thing when is it a golfer or a darts player? Is it the yips they call it? You know, when you kind of you can't quite follow through with the move, and that was classic when he basically gave it away in midfield so cheaply for that third goal. It was just a case of like he just froze kind of thing. And
he did exactly the same against Southampton.
Yes,
exactly the same. But in the Southampton game, he was.
But then he rallied, didn't he?
Yes,
he sort of he came back. But I think in this instance, with so many players not either not performing because of their injuries or whatever it was, or just not being in form, you need everyone at like 8 out of 10, don't you, to be able to. And I think the biggest if only for me is, wouldn't it have been great to just see us full strength against them, and that ultimately means Saliba, so that our game plan does come together, because
or even not have Tomiyasu injured as well. So Ben White could have been at centre back, or Tomiyasu. He's played that role for Japan. So and interestingly, and I don't think anyone was calling for it necessarily. Certainly were against Southampton, but maybe not against Man City. But since Trossard hasn't started a game, we've drawn 3 and lost 1. And scoring hasn't been a problem, but, it was last night, but not, we scored 3 against Southampton, 2 West Ham, 2 Liverpool. It's not bad. But I just wonder about his skill set occupying more of the opposition's defensive minds, which we didn't. Would
you see him maybe starting in the left 8 last night?
Not last night, no. I think if anyone your double pivot in midfield would have made more sense.
Yes, but given the fact that he didn't and Xhaka was not 100%, I just wonder who would have been a viable alternative. You could have played, I suppose, Jorginho, but
Jorginho would have been the obvious one in that game, just in that game in isolation. But...
No, see, I'd have gone with Trossard because
as the left 8.
As the left 8, the last game that Trossard started was the 4-1 against Leeds, and the thing I noticed about his performance there was actually his defensive cover. Yeah. He was making these, sprints back and intercepting the ball, which was a different side. I mean, I've not seen that.
No,
really.
You said
he
at
was
the time.
So much more switched on to dangers that the opposition would make. That actually, he's so versatile. He's so versatile.
Okay, so
stick him anywhere.
We're talking about team selection. So bounce forward to Tuesday night. What team do you go out with starting that game?
I think there just has to be changes.
Yeah, so go on.
But I don't think it matters particularly what. I think there just needs to be a message sent that we're going to do something different. We're going to try something different.
So Trossard has to start for me, but I could beyond that, in place of Jesus, in place of
for me in place of Jesus.
I would do that. But
is this sort of injuries notwithstanding kind of thing? Because
well, we're assuming Saliba's out.
For Saliba for sure, but
let's assume that everyone else is fit, if not fully functioning fit.
Well, do you know what? There was that last-ditch lunge by Zinchenko sort of late on, which kind of typified the fact that the game had kind of passed him by as well. I feel like he's been playing on his emotions almost too much, and hasn't been quite as effective. So do you know what? I mean, is Tierney a shout? It's an interesting call.
I mean, but again, it would have been in last night's game. He's more solid defensively. I'm not sure. But again, we had, Zinchenko comes into the middle, but we were completely wide open there. So I don't know. I'd need to rewatch the game to see exactly what kind of heat map Zinchenko had. I don't know.
Well, whatever it was, it would have been in a small area, but it would have been an absolute ball of fire because he's he's just so like tense the whole time.
It's a really good point because I felt that at the Southampton game when I was there, and I really felt that emotionally they'd kind of let it get away from them a bit, and they carried it into this game. That I think City, they're masters of the dark arts in knowing how to just rotational fouling the whole.
Oh God, you're going to set me off again.
But it's a good point because in terms of what we can do to control it is that our guys are young and they need to learn that and controlling themselves emotionally. And at the Southampton game, I've never seen a huddle in the centre circle at 2-0 down before, telling everyone what's going on and what to do, and it just felt odd.
I mean, accountability is important, and we've gone from a position where there was zero accountability. We'd concede a goal and there wouldn't be a word spoken between any of our players. I like Ramsdale. He's in people's faces now. Look, come on, you need to do better than this. But that huddle, I mean, was it Ødegaard?
It was Zinchenko that
kind of but Ødegaard turned around and was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
There was always that reaction to it because it was Zinchenko who was conducting it.
I love his intention. I just feel that sometimes it's a bit, when you're that emotionally led, it leads to sort of lack of discipline, and especially for the younger players, if they're looking to their older colleagues and seeing that as a kind of way forward, then I feel that can be a bit dangerous.
I thought Nelson did quite well when he came on.
Yeah.
Do you know, I was just about to say, I sort of said it tongue in cheek yesterday to some people I was chatting with, and there's an argument to say that he was our man of the match. Because he came on as a sub and he played in that way. I'm sure Arteta would have said, go out there and play with no fear to the whole team.
Yeah. Well,
but he demonstrated that. He came off the bench. He played like he was playing Bournemouth. He played like I'm going to get the ball, I'm going to run at you, and I'm going to cross it. And
he did the same against Southampton.
It was brilliant. He seems to play with a clarity. I mean, maybe his role is simplified because he's coming on as a sub when he's chasing it. I get that. I totally get that. When he starts, it might be a different thing. But you just actually, if you're talking about squad hierarchy and performance and form, surely there's a point at which you say, "Go on then, have a go."
Unfortunately,
we're playing Chelsea, and I don't want to take Chelsea lightly at all because I know that way madness lies. But there's a chance for him to, rattle.
Instead of who?
Does Saka need a rest? I mean, Saka and Martinelli, actually, their numbers have been quite good. Martinelli was just out of the game yesterday.
Yeah, I think.
And they have their quiet spells, but their numbers have been.
He's on a great run of form. Martinelli is with goals and assists in the last 11 games. Last night was the anomaly to that. Saka
So
had
I
rediscovered his form.
I would definitely start Martinelli simply because of that, and because he's the kind of player that I don't know how he would react to being benched.
He does like a
Bruno
goal
Fonseca.
against Chelsea as well.
Likes a goal against Chelsea, and maybe it is Saka. Again, not really through any fault of his own, but there was a game recently, wasn't there, where Saka had he sat on the bench for one game. Was it Palace or Leeds?
Yeah,
and then came back and just absolutely smashed it. So, I don't know, but I think for me that the bit it's the engine in midfield that needs sorting, and I wouldn't be adverse to Jorginho coming in and partnering Partey even at home to Chelsea, just because actually Holding needs that extra screen.
He does.
Partey needs a body
protection,
beside
for sure.
him. It makes Zinchenko focus on his role as fullback rather than stepping into midfield. I don't know. Yeah, we just need a little bit more of an engine maybe in the middle.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably the change I'd make for the Chelsea game as well. Is go to that double pivot.
Might depend
Chelsea
on
will be
Xhaka's fitness.
Yeah, Chelsea will be dangerous. I mean, I know they're on a fantastic losing streak under Frank, which we can all.
They've got nothing to lose, have they?
Get behind. But
please don't sack him before Tuesday. Please don't sack him before Tuesday.
Stefan loves the narrative though, and Mudryk to score his first Chelsea goal against Arsenal. It's like just put money on it now. It's written. There. It's already happened. We just haven't seen it yet. That's it. Right. Let's not go through each of the goals because why would we? So that's it. Title gone.
We're top of the league. Yes, they've got 2 games in hand, but those games in hand are one of them. West Ham.
let me run you through 4 away games: Fulham, Everton, Brighton, Brentford.
We've got Newcastle.
No, they've got those 4 away games. Now the Everton one, you'd imagine, especially after today, they've just got tanked 4-1 at home.
Are Everton going to go down? Everton are going to go down.
Would that leave us as the record number of games in top flight English football? But the Everton game for Man City is sandwiched by the 2 Real Madrid games. So there's if you can see one game where they may take their eye off the ball, but this harks back to what you were saying, Chris. It's not last night's defeat. I was fully expecting us to lose that game all season. It's the context we entered that game in. It's if we had that extra 4 points from the West Ham, and I know, look, if we had the extra 4 points from the West Ham and the Southampton games, which I assumed just that we would, then we'd be sitting 6 points clear of them, and they'd have 2 games in hand. Right. So at which point,
given the goal difference, I suppose you could argue that would still put them on top. But in terms of if we all win our remaining,
we're now looking. We're looking for them to drop points in 2 games.
Yeah.
At least, assuming we win all ours.
Yes. Yeah.
And the only thing that's going to scupper them is how they manage that Champions League, Premier League back and forth, because
luckily for them, they've got 2 teams of very high caliber players. So the way they rotated yesterday with their subs seamlessly, and what can you do? You do have to give them a lot of credit, don't you? And aside from the obvious kind of issues we have with them and how they became so successful, I think football-wise. Go on, Stefan. Sorry.
It's just I can't. We've got to get into the whole bloody sports washing and financial irregularities.
Get the lawyers.
Someone made a really good point online that I read sort of post game when I was just down a complete rabbit hole. That yes, you can't deny that Guardiola is arguably, the football manager of this generation. It's Alex Ferguson before, and it's probably Pep Guardiola now. You also can't deny that actually the players that they've assembled are incredible. De Bruyne is just, I mean, he's become much more of a snide little git in the last couple of years, but he's just a great player. I mean, however, when it comes to buying these players, that club they don't have to make any compromises. There's never a single moment's hesitation when it comes to A, do we need that player? B, can we get that player? B, if we get that player, what impact does that have for our squad? They don't have to answer any of those questions. Whereas every other single club, bar maybe Man United, maybe Chelsea,
Newcastle
now. So they're in line.
We'll be having this conversation, about Newcastle next year, because
we will,
on the cards,
because the moment that ownership becomes at that level, regardless of what FFP says it should be about your commercial revenue, when they're able to game the system by letting an airline company sponsor the center spot or whatever it is that they manage to do to cook the books, they don't have to make any compromises. So you're playing Football Manager on cheat mode with no limitations, no reservation, no hesitation. Because let's face it, they've just had a Wembley semi-final FA Cup where they couldn't sell out their allocation. So actually commercial, and that's not to, I'm not doing the whole big club, little club thing. What I'm saying is commercial revenue, it can't be at the level that other clubs can be at. And yet they can just throw their financial might at everything. And what they've done is great. They've made some great decisions. I struggle to actually think of many signings that they've made that have been pretty pants. Well, even unless they're just completely overshadowed by the ones that are so good. But
even moved them on Akanji cost 15 million, and he's stepping into the team. He's the next one up.
He was great.
Manchester United have spent more money assembling their squad than City have, so they have spent their money. But
United do generate a hell of a lot of money around the world.
They spend their own. Yeah.
So that's the big difference, isn't it? And what City pay their players is also a huge factor here. That's what keeps them happy. They'll give them 300 odd grand a week to sit on the bench, and fine, I'll take that. Yeah, which other clubs cannot do.
Simply cannot do.
So, like I said, or I read online, and I said it to someone. Just make sure we finish second. So when City is stripped of this league title, it's all ours.
You should bring a
that will be an interesting development. The Premier League is turning into, various different European leagues. In that, essentially, we're probably becoming as competitive as the Bundesliga is. In that, Bayern Munich win it every year with their financial might that they have in Germany, and that's even with their 49-51 rule for ownership and stuff. Just again, commercial revenue is just so much higher. But also there's this element in Italy. Juventus have had this ongoing issue with alleged sort of, transfer fees or agents fees or whatever it is. It's being investigated. They've had 15 points docked, given back because the case is ongoing under appeal or whatever. Well, actually, Man City are kind of in that model as well, because yes, they're winning and they're turning it into a fairly uncompetitive league at the top. They're going for their third title in a row. But behind the scenes, there's a system at play that it's hard to say a cliche like, there's no smoke without fire, but they're having all these things thrown at them, and they'll claim injustice. The fans booed the Premier League anthem. Who knew there was a Premier League anthem before they started booing it? But there's a kind of siege mentality going on where the authorities are going to keep probing, and Man City are going to keep claiming sort of innocence. But they're owned by Abu Dhabi. They're owned by a sheikh who is clearly going to have all the financial might in the world. But
they'll just keep kicking the can down the road on this whole.
I can't see it coming to much. No.
No.
But how do we cope then, as a kind of, not just as us as Arsenal, but how does everyone else compete if this carries on?
Well, we're not paupers.
No.
Well, and we've made some good decisions, and we've got players that we brought through who are worth bazillions. So
I mean,
it
look
is
at
possible.
Look
Yes,
at Brighton.
The Brighton model is excellent example. Yeah,
I mean, they're ridiculous. The talent
scouting.
the talent they're churning through. They can lose, 3 or 4 players every couple of transfer windows and get better.
Do you not find that every now and again there is a team and a club like this? Because I remember a few years ago it was Southampton, and Liverpool kept buying all their players.
Yeah,
That a club hits on a sort of a pocket of scouting that enables them to
Leicester as well
level up, as it were. Leicester had lots of young sort of bright English players and this, that, and the other, and then it sort of fades. But as it does with even teams at the top, we had our day, and then have fallen away. Man United, once the Fergie spell was broken and they could be got at, it's been very sort of scattergun. Look at Chelsea. Abramovich takes out his money, but also probably his infrastructure and his leadership in a sense as well. And then this Bowley comes in, throws money at it, but is just seemingly making willful decisions that only get worse and worse. And so it's just such a strange time for football as a whole, I think.
Okay, we will revisit this obviously at the end of the season, but we're sitting here and we're quite despondent, perhaps a bit deflated. The realism has kicked in, and if there are any fans of other clubs listening to us, well, I apologise.
First world problems, eh?
What are you doing here?
Yes, but actually, let's bounce on to the last bit, the 3 takeaways. I've only done 3 takeaways. I haven't broken it down any more than that. But one of them is actually we're in a very, very, very good position.
Yes,
we are. We're in the Champions League. We will attract a Champions League quality player in the summer. The names that are being linked with us, obviously Declan Rice, talking of Brighton, Caicedo. I mean, there's an argument to say that we could do with both of those players. And I think last night's performance kind of highlights that further. So how do you? So one of my 3 takeaways is that actually it's not all doom and gloom. Yes, of course, last night's defeat is raw. The Southampton result, the West Ham result, the fact that it's the hope that kills you, etc. And we never thought we'd be in this position, but yes, we still are in this position. We could still win the league. Man City have dropped points this season when you wouldn't have expected them to, i.e. Forest away straight after they beat us at the Emirates to go above us. It could happen, in which case, bring it on again. But even if it doesn't happen, wow, I mean, this is exciting. I can't wait for the new season, provided we do strengthen, because I have absolute faith in Arteta and what he's doing. The transformation at this club is, well, we're unrecognisable to 3 years ago. The whole club, the whole attitude, the atmosphere, everything. How many thousands turned up for the under-18s in the FA Youth Cup final? Like 32, 33,000. Wow. How many? Is it 50,000 for the
55 for the women's game?
55. So that's nearly a sellout. I mean, by the time that comes, when is that?
Monday.
Right. By the time that comes around, that'll probably be a sellout.
Yeah.
So we're in such a good place.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the disappointment we're feeling now. So that's my main takeaway. And I think it's today of all days, it's been difficult to focus on that, but I think I'm managing it. I can compartmentalize and park last night, and nobody believed we would be anywhere near to where we are now. So what about you guys, Stefan? What about you in terms of your takeaways? from
Well, you got
last
me
night.
thinking a second ago in terms of the positivity and that whole age profile. I've got the ages up here. Saka's 21.
Oh, we would have been the youngest team ever to
Martinelli's
win the Premier League.
21. You know, I just got into Saliba is 22. Saliba is 22. A dominant, composed, skillful, level-headed centre-back, international centre-back, is 22 years old.
How old is our captain? Is he 24?
Odegaard.
24, I think.
24, yeah. So if he's
mean,
the old
that's-
man of the group, as it
And
were.
he's not in his. He's got a couple of years before he enters his prime.
Well, exactly. Even someone like Ben White is 25. You know, all right, he hasn't featured as much, but Smith Rowe's 22, Fabio Vieira's 22.
Ramsdale.
The room for development, but also addition
Yeah.
to those players, because now the profile will change now on who we buy, because I think Vieira sort of sums it up in the sense that buying him last year, that made sense. You know, a player who's had a good spell, a short spell, albeit in Portuguese football. We're pushing for Europa League. If he comes in, plays a few cup games here and there, that's fine. If he needs a loan somewhere else for a little bit, you know, that's fine as well, because we're trying to get in the Champions League. If we can then make a little bit of profit, then fine. We've ended up in a title race, and it's almost like we've moved beyond his transfer within the matter of months. But this year, we won't be buying a 21-year-old prospect from the Portuguese league. We'll be looking for someone to spur him up. That's why Rice is being mentioned. That's why Caicedo is being mentioned. And so it will be really telling to see where the club sort of goes from there, really. Because like you say, I think you mentioned it earlier, Chris, City have 2 11s. And you get the feeling that Arteta would very much like that idea of being able to have that quality, you know, not such a bloated squad, but lean and really concentrated. And yeah, how we get there will be.
I think that's why he realizes we haven't got the budget to have a 2-11s, but that's why the players he picks are so versatile.
Exactly. I was just going to say that's what he leans into more, is the fact that you can get your Trossard out there in 3 or 4 different positions, and that's key to how we develop. We can't have 2 11s. That just wouldn't work.
No.
But I think I would take on what both of you have said and just develop slightly, in that I think not enough has been made of the sort of holistic change within the club, and that is so important. Those sort of soft factors, that culture that he has, from Maureen the tea lady through to the top, you know, that everyone is on page, on message, from you know, walking into the training ground and seeing the mottos on the trees that he's planted along the way. And you know, everything is like, yes, he micromanages kind of, but you know, in a good way. I think that's what I'm loving, and the buy-in. And I feel like all our kind of stars have aligned in a sense. We've got Wilshere back there, we've got Saka, we've got Adu, we've got this Arsenal kind of blood running through the setup, which we didn't have a few years ago when Emery was around. It just feels like we're in a good place, and we shouldn't dwell too much on you know, obviously we're all disappointed after the City game, but I stepped back, like I said, after the West Ham thing. That was when I did my grieving, and I just thought, no, I'm so glad we've done this well this year and next year. And leaning into what you just said, Stefan, you know, the regardless of what happens, we're going to strengthen, and let's see how they strengthen. And I think the profile of the players is going to be, you know, crucial in that, and the Premier League ready players, not Vieira types, because we can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Cool, lovely. Right, I think, shall we stop now? That's positive.
Really, it's a really positive end.
It's as positive as it gets, but it is positive.
I haven't even got
sure.
to talk about the hypocrisy of everyone saying that Arsenal won't win the league, and then when we look like we might actually miss out on the league, everyone goes, "Nah, see, you haven't won the league," and it's like,
well, is it worth touching very quickly then on the thing that really annoys me, this reductive term of bottling?
No.
Oh, it's rubbish.
Do you not want to go there?
It's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's like,
Well, have
It's
we
the
ever levelled it
petty
against
tribalism of football, isn't it?
Well, it is, but I just feel that in that West Ham game in particular, I saw a moment after the 2-0 where they just didn't know whether to stick or twist. That's how it felt to me, is that we're 2-0 up, what do we do? And their idea of control was to sort of pass meekly to each other. And from that point on, I started worrying. And I was on a chat forum and I said, I'm worried here. And they were all going, oh, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And then sure enough. So I'm not...
But we had a Saka penalty and that game was different.
Oh, the ifs, buts, and maybes.
Yeah.
But it is, and that's, that game would have been won had Saka scored that penalty. 3-1 at that point, and the stuffing, their bubble would have burst to, somewhat ironic.
Then we're back to the bottling, and they'll say, "Oh, well, Saka bottled the penalty." That's what I'm saying. It is such a horrible phrase. It just gets.
Yeah, but you can't. How can you bottle not winning the league against a team like Man City? It's just
exactly.
What did it, Stefan? You messaged me yesterday. We're 16 points clear of what? Is it? You said that.
I sent you that message.
Oh, was it you?
Yeah. About the most legit. Yeah, the nearest legitimate team is 16 points behind us.
Yeah.
It was not. It wasn't my quote. It was a friend of mine's, but it was to do with the whole money.
Because we're not competing with City. We know that. If anything, that it was almost a bottle job from them to let a young team like Arsenal run them within 5 games of the end of the season. That's probably too close for comfort for them, which is why they celebrated like, the spoilt brat children that they are at the end of the game. Because my view of Man City has very much changed after yesterday. I want to apologise unreservedly to, and bear with me, Liverpool, to Man United, and any other team that have been competing, and not Chelsea, because it was always a case of, oh, don't really mind if City win it, don't really feel anything for it. Yeah. Actually, no, change that now. Their might, it just kind of, we've actually got more in common with Liverpool and Man United. We've all got American owners who at one time or another have both given a shit and not given a shit, and spent some money and not spent some money, but haven't really, messed with the formula too much of how a football club is run. You go up to Man City now, they've built a town in the middle of, sort of Manchester, which, and it looks really sort of, I don't know, like corporate and weird, and it's just odd. And just something just doesn't sit right. So I will never say, I'm all right with City win it, because they always win it. Never, ever again.
Okay.
And they're bad winners as well.
Balance,
I hate them.
For balance, the FA Cup final upcoming between Manchester City and Manchester United, I will be 100% a citizen that day. I will be wearing anything pale blue I can get. And I take on board everything you've just said. But my feelings towards Man United are deep, emotional, and irrational, perhaps. So
sure.
I wish deep and long suffering upon Manchester United.
From a purely petty football banter perspective, of course, Man City actually doing the treble and having that one thing that United fans have over them to bounce back. I mean, it would be amusing. Especially scenes as we'd obviously just be sort of sat back going and from our sort of position, but I mean, I'll be interested to watch that. Did you see today the rail unions said that they're going to strike on that day, on the day of the FA Cup final?
But most Man United fans live in London anyway.
Absolutely so amazing. Yeah. Well, there was loads of jokes going around going, oh, the Man City fans will be annoyed at that, won't they?
It's Stefan. Do you have any other, or Chris? Do you have any other takeaways?
No, I think I've said all. In closing, really, but it's all good. I'm positive. I am positive because it's too easy to be. I think granular, and we go through pour over every detail of every game, and he's crap and blah blah blah. But you have to stand back and look at where we're at, and I think we're in good hands. And next year, let's regroup and go again.
All you need to know is supporters of Spurs, Chelsea, Manchester United to a slightly lesser degree at the moment are looking at us with nothing but pure envy.
Yeah, of course.
And that's a really nice place to be.
Yeah, but particularly because of the way we've brought through our youth players, and
Yeah.
you know, Spurs have got Skip. I think that's about it. And we're after Mason Mount, so it's interesting. Yeah, what's going on over there? But
It's
all
funny
good.
how you know the big six in very much air quotes. I know Newcastle are disrupting things now, but that old-fashioned big six, you know, Liverpool are a team that have aged very suddenly. Tottenham are a team that have aged very suddenly. Chelsea are a team that have assembled very quickly. Man United, again, they're getting a semblance of something. They've put someone in charge who's actually going to be a figurehead. And that's what Chelsea and Tottenham are going to be scrabbling around for. So they're going to be another year, 18 months down the line before anything vaguely competent sort of comes their way, you imagine, unless they suddenly strike on some gold to begin with. But, you know, you don't see it. Law of averages, like you say, Chris. We as football fans focus on the minutiae, every little decision, but, you know, you talk to most, you know, professional sort of people, it's always about the bigger picture. You know, I mean, me and Holly are both teachers. You know, one lesson going wrong doesn't make a school terrible. You know, actually when broadly everything's going well, then that's fine. So we're in such an enviable position, and you know, long may it continue.
And looking back at this season, all right, we haven't won the league, but the season has been a series of quite incredible moments. And those moments have, like, they will live long in the memory. I mean, Manchester United's a 90th minute Eddie winner against Manchester United right in front of us. Obviously, for you, Stefan, in particular, because you were at the game, Villa away, the Martinez.
That was
goal.
insane.
That
Absolutely
was
insane.
And then,
narrative every time.
And then the Bournemouth,
Madness.
97th minute winner. It is just a shame. It is tinged still. Obviously, it's still a bit raw. That they won't be moments.
But it doesn't diminish the moments. That's the thing along the journey.
No, that was my point.
Yeah, you don't allow, you know, your ultimate.
Yes.
Obviously, we'd like to win, but you know, imagine being a supporter of Rochdale and never win anything, but you still got to find your moments to.
And there are only 4 trophies up for grabs each season, so you know, there you go. Anyway, look, we will knock it on the head now. Stefan, you guys going on Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not, because it's a school night.
I know.
And I can't. And I'm quite upset and annoyed about that, but hey ho. So we'll catch up on possibly Wednesday then to chew over
Mudrik's
yet more
hat-trick.
narrative.
Oh no.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, guys. Have a great week, and we'll
Play us out with the theme tune. Yep.
Yeah, sure. I'm on that now.
Cheers.
Right. Bye.